evening and welcome to the Left, Right and Centre this Friday night. An NDTV special report on the plight of India's labour sector. New reforms that allocated vast sums of money to fund wages and benefits for India's unorganised sector are waiting to be implemented. The Supreme Court has hit out at the Delhi government now over crores meant for construction labour welfare instead being spent on advertising. While the Delhi Labour Welfare Board has spent 2.7 crore rupees in publicity, it says labourers don't come to claim their benefits. Tanima Biswas reports.
In sweltering heat, Parul Mandal works almost 12 hours every day at this construction site in South Delhi. Even then, it's hardly enough to sustain her family of 6. Little does she or anyone know that the Delhi government is sitting on crores of rupees meant for their benefit. For every building constructed, there is a cess collected by each state government, which goes in to pay for the welfare of the labourers, including their pension, maternity benefits, education of their children, and also protection against accidental injuries. But out of the 27,000 crores collected across the country, only a small amount has been spent, which has come in for severe criticism by the Supreme Court. In fact, even in Delhi, where there's a lot of construction going on, out of the 1,700 crores collected by the state government over the past 10 years, only 55 crores have been spent. One of the government's main excuses is that very few workers register. Even fewer come forward to claim their benefits. This is a deeply ironic claim given that the Welfare Board claims to have spent almost 2.7 crores on publicity by putting up notices in newspapers and sponsoring jingles on popular radio channels. This came in for strong criticism by the court, which said, and I quote, "Thousands of crores are collected, but money is spent on advertisement and administration. Money for poor, used by some babus. It's ridiculous," unquote. Though the Supreme Court has asked them to return this money to the fund, Delhi government officials say they were only following the court's orders.
The apex court in its earlier order had categorically directed all the state governments that they need to incur a lot of expenditure on publicity because these poor people are illiterate, uneducated, unaware of their rights and entitlements.
But why then is it that despite the ads and a physical outreach, so few workers have heard of it or have registered? The state government claims that they distribute pamphlets like these at all construction sites and labour chalks across the capital. But despite that, they have only been able to register 3 lakh labourers out of 10 lakh workers in the city, raising questions as to whether they have made a genuine effort.
हमारा स्कूल बच्चा पढ़ लिया, पैसा वैसा कुछ भी नहीं मिला, कुछ भी पता नहीं, यही काम करता हूँ, यही खाता हूँ, यही रहता हूँ बस.
With camera person Pavan Kumar in New Delhi, Tanima Biswas for NDTV.
Well, joining us to discuss this issue of labour reform and of course the massive amounts of money that have been spent on advertising rather than going to the labourers. From the BJP, we have party spokesperson P.N. Vijay. From the Congress, we have Sanjay Jha. We also have Vivek Tankha, the former Additional Solicitor General of India, and amicus curiae in this case. We'll be joined by other guests as well in the course of the evening. We believe they're held up in traffic, but hopefully they'll be here soon. Vivek Tankha, I want to start with you actually. The Supreme Court has come down very heavily. Its criticism of the kind of money that's been spent on advertising where it should be given to the workers is a very strong one. And the issue really is that many workers don't even know that these benefits are available to them.
I completely endorse what you're saying. In fact, it is shocking that this act was brought in 1996. For 10 long years, despite the act being on the statute, nothing was happening. Then a PIL is moved in Supreme Court, and this is in 2010 when the Supreme Court started pushing not just Delhi but all the states in India to constitute their boards, their welfare boards, to start thinking about disbursing money. They were not doing it. Then contempt notices were issued to the state governments. Then somehow in 2-3 years these boards got constituted. Now, having constituted the board, having started the collection, you now have more than 27,000 crores in your kitty, and the money is still not reaching the people for whom it is meant. I mean, if you look at that list of the disbursement,
yeah,
it's pathetic. It's not just Delhi; it's the whole country.
Right.
We are very fond of making laws, very fond of collecting money, but there is no effort to ensure that it reaches the right people.
Okay, fine. No effort to ensure it reaches the right people. Sanjay Jha, I want to ask you, this PIL that Vivek Tanka is also talking about was initiated in 2010 when there was a Congress regime in power in Delhi as well. Now, the fact is that, you know, the move for labor reform, the move for benefits to construction laborers, particularly in the unorganized sector, is something we've heard several political leaders sort of talk about from time to time. When it comes to implementation, what do you think goes wrong every time?
Maya, I think I'll just try and rise above the political, brownie points we score. I think this is a failure of the entire administrative and political mechanism in the country, because different states are ruled by different parties, and I think it's apathetic, very insensitive, very callous. And I agree with Mr. Tanka. You know, I live in Mumbai, where I know that there are workers who are construction workers working in skyscraper buildings, exposed to huge accident and risks, and many die. And end of day, I think most of the laborers who are employed in the construction sector are migrants from UP and Bihar. They are considered part of the informal sector and casual labor, and they are the ones who actually suffer the ultimate ignominy of living in big cities without any backup or any organized financial support. The fact, and I think this is criminal, honestly, and I'm going to speak as an ordinary citizen and not just as a spokesperson of my party. I think it's very heartless, because if you have funds, firstly, we complain we don't have funds.
Okay.
But here, when you have a system that has funds and then you don't spend it and you just advertise and you don't even let people know about workers' rights, which cannot be done just through advertisement.
Right.
You actually got to make employers and construction owners, you got to make all the builders, whether of government or private property, to be equally liable to get these rights to be communicated. So clearly something is systemic, in terms of deficiency here, and we need to correct it without wasting any time.
Can I just tell?
Yes, Mr. Tanka.
Something?
Yes, Mr. Tanka. Go ahead. We'll go back to PN Vijay after this.
How can you even reach the workers when there's no mobility in the cards that you issue them? Like if a construction worker gets a card in Delhi and he works here for 3 months, 6 months, and he goes to Bihar, he can't use the same card. So then he has to get another card. And so number two, you say that you want to give him money for death or birth or sickness. Now, what is the procedure? I mean, if I make an application today, do I get the money today or after 6 months?
Okay.
It's pathetic. I mean, the way we are treating our workers, and we have no systems. And what have we done in these 15 years? I mean, it's not the central government, it's the state governments which have to rise to the occasion. Center has to monitor it. Center is not even doing that.
All right. We've got KTS Tulsi, also Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, joining us in the studio. But before we come to you, Mr. Tulsi, just a moment, we're going to go across to PN Vijay. Mr. Vijay, the Prime Minister has said, the government in fact states that labour welfare money is going to be used for skill development towards the Skill India campaign. We're seeing a situation where money that's genuinely meant to be allocated for their welfare is being used on publicity. They are saying that they don't even know these schemes exist.
Well, about 5% being used on publicity and 95% not being used at all. You see, if you see this whole thing, and I agree with Mr. Jha, this is not a political issue. It's really a national shame that this is happening. You see, if you see that the legislature way back in 96, with the best of intentions, passed a law which is admittedly very tough to implement because of the reasons Mr. Tanka just pointed out. And then they do nothing, and then the Supreme Court comes down like a ton of bricks on facing a contempt petition, and then tells these people to set up a separate welfare fund. Now the key thing is the administration has just collapsed. I mean, it's just totally indifferent. The legislature has done its bit, the judiciary has done its bit, but the administration has totally collapsed.
Okay.
It's immaterial which state it is, whether it's a Congress state or a BJP state. Now going forward, I feel we need to totally change this model. For example, in the investor protection fund which we have, the fund is sequestered. I think it should be kept in a nationalized bank, and then a public-private body should be constituted which can monitor the end use.
Okay.
And so that the money, let's say we get 50 crores from DLF for a project in Gurgaon.
Yeah.
This unit ensures that this 50 crores goes to the workers in Gurgaon before they leave back for Bihar or Orissa
Right,
or
but Mr.
wherever.
Vijay, the question
So
really comes
we
back to
just
the
cannot
same-
leave it. We just cannot leave it. Sorry, I just want to say we just cannot leave it to
who
the
is going to
state.
monitor this? Who is going to monitor this? And KTS.
Yeah. Actually, I think it has to be an independent agency. And
Okay.
also there is a suggestion which I received on this, that before we give a completion certificate to the builder so that people can occupy, the builder has to confirm from this independent agency that he has disbursed this money. It's
Okay.
just not enough to have a law, collect money, and then include it in the consolidated fund, which
Independent
happens quite often.
agency.
Unused
Okay.
money gets to the consolidated fund.
All right,
So we
Mr.
need to
Vijay.
set the
One
monitor the
moment,
process.
sir. One moment,
Yeah.
sir. We're going to bring KTS Tulsi into this as well. Mr. Tulsi, you have the Congress and the BJP on the same side on this. They're all saying the right things. But, the Supreme Court took a very tough stand on this issue of the publicity, the money that's been spent on publicity. Now, Delhi government, we tried to bring the Aam Aadmi Party into the studio for a discussion. They said there's nobody available this evening, so they've refused to participate. But what is the Supreme Court actually looking for from the centre, from state governments, when they're making an observation like this and asking for an account?
You see, it's a shame that there is no fiscal discipline, and the control of the parliament is also getting loosened up. It is just not enough for the Supreme Court to say that why is this happening? In this day and age, where everyone has an Aadhaar card and bank accounts, still money is not going, and the Prime Minister seems to be putting a state to auction. How much do you want? This is not the way public money was supposed to be distributed to the states, and the states are reduced to the status of a beggar. And he says in so many words that the Chief Minister comes with a begging ball every other day. What has happened to the system?
But P.N. Vijay, why don't you respond?
No, but what's he saying? I don't understand. What's that got to do with this construction thing?
Maya, one quick
He's making some wild allegations, and he's just trying to enlarge the debate and throw a bit of mud on BJP or something. I mean, it's irrelevant what he's saying.
But the question is, this is criminal
Honestly,
misappropriation.
he's just saying Parliament is not effective.
This is,
and
P.N. Vijay,
if
the
he wants me
point-
to start a discussion on that, then
The
we won't be
point Mr.
talking about the
Tulsi is
construction
making-
Very
workers'
well, then
plight.
we-
I can then set off on a tangent about how that 1,65,000
How is this a
is
tangent?
arrived
But-
and what we are
but
doing
Mr.
for the
Vijay,
states
the whole-
and all
the
that.
point
If he
is-
wants that, then your program on construction
No, these
workers will
people should
become
be put
one
behind
more
bars.
ding-dong battle about
when we say construction
Modi
workers, we're
positive,
basically
Modi
talking-
negative.
Mr.
That's
Vijay,
rubbish.
Mr.
Let's
Vijay.
talk about the construction workers, their plight, what the Supreme Court order
Mr.
is,
Vijay,
and what
it's
we
the
need to do
unorganized
so that it
sector
can
and
improve the
labour
lot of
reform.
construction workers.
All right, Mr. Vijay, it's the unorganized sector and labour
Absolutely.
reform.
This is not
All
labor
right.
reform. This is a simple, shameful attitude of the administration on collecting a money and not disbursing it, sleeping on it, having foreign trips.
So
on
what's
it.
the
But this is
consequence?
not
Nothing to do
just
with
happening.
reforms.
This
can't
is not.
we can't
Mr.
call everything
Vijay,
reforms.
Mr. Vijay,
Tomorrow
one
you
moment,
ask
sir.
a bureaucrat to come
P.N.
at...
Vijay, one moment, sir. This is not just happening in Delhi. This is happening in BJP-run states as well. So it's not about passing the buck to
It's
another
happening in
political
all the
party.
27 states, madam.
Right,
It has
right.
to happen.
So
It's running
given-
in, as Mr. Tanka said, it's a thing which has to be implemented by the states.
What
It has
implemented?
been happening when
Heads
the
must
BJP is
roll.
ruling, Congress are
Okay.
ruling, as
All
Nitish
right, all
Kumar
right.
are ruling, because the administration is the same. They are the indifferent, corrupt people.